Mark approached Luna's enclosure. He noticed something unusual. The tigress paced restlessly, her eyes fixed on him, and she refused to let him leave, even clamping herself to Mark's legs. Mark's heart sank as he sensed her distress, and he knew something was terribly wrong. Desperate to understand Luna's behavior, Mark called the zoo's veterinarian, Dr. Sarah Bennett. She approached Luna's enclosure cautiously, observing her closely. After a quick examination, Dr. Bennett made a startling discovery. "We need to act quick!" she shouts. It all went too fast for Mark to really comprehend what was going on. He knew that there was something wrong with Luna, but that she immediately needed to be transported to the best veterinarian clinic in the area was worse than he could have feared. In how much danger was his beloved tiger? And the worst part was that Dr. Sarah refused to reveal to him what she had discovered. Only at the vet's clinic did the reality of the situation become clear to Mark. Finally, he understood Luna's behavior, and he felt so bad that he had not realized what was going on sooner. Maybe then, this could all have been avoided. But what was going on with the pregnant Luna? Why did she refuse to let Mark go, and would the vet be able to help her? In Luna, the zoo had probably one of the most special animals in the world. She is a young female tiger that is very unusually small for her age. Experts are bordering on calling her a miniature tiger, which would make it the only one in existence. But she has to first stop growing before they can be certain of that. But her size was not the only thing that made Luna special. She was also pregnant. The zoo also had a male tiger, and after a couple of attempts, they were finally successful. It was always a risk when a not fully grown female animal got pregnant, but the zoo knew what they were doing. And with constant monitoring and care, they knew that this pregnancy would go as smoothly as possible. And Luna's caretaker, Mark, was mainly responsible for that. Luna was actually born in the park and had known Mark from the very first moment she opened her eyes. The two had a very special relationship. No other caretaker was even allowed to come close to the temperamental lady, but Mark could do everything to and with her. He knew Luna through and through, which is also why he was the first one to notice that something was wrong. Luna's behavior just seemed to change overnight. Mark noticed it immediately when he arrived at her cage that morning. Most days the big cat liked to sleep in, and he would have to wake her up with food to start the day. But not today. Luna was very much up, relentlessly pacing up and down the cage, and when she noticed he was coming, her eyes were completely focused on him. The look in Luna's eyes actually scared Mark a little bit. She looked really bothered, almost angry. He had worked with tigers a lot in the past and studied the animal a lot, and he knew that that look could not mean anything good. He would probably be better off not getting in the cage today. Luna had never hurt him before, and he trusted her very much, but he did not want to take unnecessary risks. He did spend a lot of time with Luna that day, however, because he was still very worried about his feline friend. He hoped that she would calm down a bit during the day, but her expression did not change. She did, however, also not want to leave Mark's side and sit with him, even while he was on the outside of her enclosure. Maybe Mark was just overreacting. He found it hard leaving Luna behind that evening when he went home. There was obviously something going on with the animal, but he could not figure out what it was exactly, at least not from such a decision. He hoped that her behavior would be very different in the morning and he could go back into the cage. But Mark would end up being very disappointed. Nothing had changed in the morning, and the night watch at the zoo had actually even sent Mark a worried message in the evening. They were also completely unfamiliar with Luna's odd behavior and wanted to know if Mark knew what was going on. He sadly did not, but now he was even more determined to find out, no matter how risky it was. Mark had kept Luna's strange behavior away from his family as well so far. He did not want them to worry about the stupid risk he was about to take. His wife would most likely try to stop him. But Mark really did not want to be stopped. He wanted to solve this problem, and he wanted to solve it quickly. He walked up to Luna's cage, determined as could be. He wanted to get in there with the tiger he cared so much about. He knew that something was wrong with her, and he wanted nothing more than to help her. Luna had not yet seen him approach today, and Mark carefully made his way into the cage, just hoping that he was not making a life-changing mistake. When Luna noticed him, she did not hesitate for a second and changed her long-term caretaker. Mark's heart was nearly beating out of his chest, and he closed his eyes. He was ready for whatever was coming to him. He expected nails and teeth to soon enter his body. But instead, all he felt was a tight fury squeeze on his leg. He opened his eyes and looked to find Luna having wrapped her front paws around her legs. He had never seen her do this before. He knew they were close, but actually getting a hug from the tiger was something completely different. Mark did not even really know how to react. But when he looked into Luna's eyes, he knew exactly what to do. This animal was scared. That much was perfectly clear to him. The look in her eyes was one of fear. Maybe the feeling of being pregnant was so new to her that it frightened her. But that was by far a best-case scenario, and very unlikely. If evolution had given animals anything, it was the instinct that being pregnant was good. There had to be something else. Mark was sure that Luna felt like there was something wrong with her, and she was so desperate for him because she felt like he was the only person who could help. And Mark hated the fact that she was only partially right in that. He was an expert on tiger behavior, but he had no idea about how to heal a sick animal or even determine what was exactly wrong with them. Luckily, Mark knew somebody who would most definitely be able to help him. The zoo had a vet employed who had so far shown that he was able to take care of nearly all the animals there. Even if she did not know how to proceed, she would at least know where to find the appropriate help for Luna. Something just had to be done, and it had to be done quickly. When Mark made it known that there was potentially something wrong with Luna, the whole zoo was immediately on high alert. Luna was probably the zoo's most prized possession, so even the thought of something happening to her sent chills down the spine of everybody. From the nighttime clearer, all the way to the director and owner of the zoo. The zoo's veterinarian Dr. Sarah Bennett was at the cage in less than 15 minutes. Which was even more impressive considering the fact that she was not even at the zoo when she got the call from Mark. He was still in the cage with Luna when Sarah arrived, and he quickly started waving at her to come in. But Sarah was understandably a bit hesitant. Sarah took a deep breath, her fingers trembling slightly as she inched closer to the cage's entrance. Luna's piercing eyes tracked her every move, the air thick with tension. Mark watched, biting the inside of his cheek, hoping his presence would provide some solace. But as Sarah placed one foot inside the enclosure, Luna's muscles tensed visibly. The sound emanating from Luna's throat was low and threatening. Baring her gleaming teeth, Luna's growl echoed across the enclosure, a primal warning not to come any closer. Mark's reassuring voice tried to break through. "Easy, Luna, easy." But the tigress's instincts were in overdrive, and she seemed prepared to protect her territory at all costs. Mark knelt down, extending a trembling hand towards Luna. "It's okay, girl. She's here to help," he whispered. Each word was deliberate, hoping to reach the bond they'd nurtured over the years. His eyes locked with Luna's, conveying a silent plea for understanding and trust. Sarah, meanwhile, paused, assessing the situation, her own heart racing as she weighed her options and wished for a breakthrough. In a moment of unexpected clarity, Luna's grip on Mark's leg loosened. The atmosphere shifted as her aggressive posture momentarily waned. But as Sarah took it as a sign to advance, Luna's head snapped in her direction. Mark saw the imminent threat and shouted, "Sarah, move!" Without waiting, Sarah pivoted and dashed out, leaving Mark alone in the cage, breathing heavily. Outside the enclosure, Sarah leaned against a nearby wall, her chest heaving from the adrenaline rush. Mark soon joined her, his own relief palpable. "I knew she was protective," Mark murmured, "but that was something else." Sarah nodded slowly. "It's a reminder, isn't it? No matter how well we think we know them, there's always an element of wildness we can't predict." Past incidents played like a reel in Sarah's mind. Luna once rescued from a group of poachers, had understandably developed a deep distrust towards unfamiliar humans. While she had come to accept Mark and a few others, outsiders often sparked her defensive instincts. Sarah, despite being a vet, was still an outsider in Luna's eyes, bringing forth the memory of the trauma she had experienced in her past. Understanding Luna's triggers, Mark slowly shifted himself to a strategic spot in the cage. Gently coaxing Luna towards the corner, he used soothing words and subtle body movements. His ultimate aim was to create a buffer, allowing Sarah a better line of sight without completely invading Luna's space. Sarah, standing safely outside the enclosure, began calling out directives. "Check her paws, Mark. Look for any swelling." Mark obeyed, carefully trying to get a glance without antagonizing the tigress further. This dance of directions continued as Sarah attempted to make an assessment via proxy. Sarah's face etched with concern. The distance, coupled with Luna's agitated state, made it nearly impossible to get an accurate read on the situation. Each attempt was met with a growl or a shift, further impeding clarity. The frustration in the air was palpable. Mark looked to Sarah, their shared understanding clear. This method wasn't working. The risks were too high and the gains minimal. "We need another plan," Mark murmured, recognizing the mounting challenges. Sarah nodded in agreement, her mind already racing through alternatives. Whispers among the zoo staff grew louder as word spread about Luna's condition and her impending motherhood. Every passing moment felt critical. The pressure of ensuring the safety of not just Luna, but her unborn cubs too, intensified the atmosphere, making the stakes even higher. In the confines of the zoo's medical office, a debate raged. "We could sedate her, get a better look," one technician suggested. But Sarah countered, emphasizing the risks, especially given Luna's pregnancy. The discussion continued, and each option weighed against potential repercussions. In an impromptu gathering, zookeepers, veterinarians, and even some administrative staff huddled together. Ideas flowed, from using treats to distract Luna to employing specialized equipment. Everyone was unified by a common goal, ensuring Luna's well-being without resorting to drastic measures. After hours of discussion and failing to find an optimal solution, a difficult decision was made. They would use mild restraints to hold Luna, minimizing any potential harm but allowing a thorough examination. It wasn't ideal, but given the circumstances, it seemed the only viable choice. Mark stood solemn, his heart heavy. He had dedicated years to building trust with Luna, and the thought of betraying that bond, even momentarily, pained him deeply. "It's for her own good," Sarah whispered, trying to offer some comfort. The air was thick with tension as personnel from all corners of the zoo congregated. Experienced zookeepers, animal handlers, and some brave volunteers readied themselves for the task ahead. Equipped with tools and equipment, they prepared to tackle the challenge of restraining the powerful tigress without causing harm. Moving in unison, the team approached Luna. Some used ropes, while others held onto restraining tools. Every action was calculated, and every movement was synchronized to ensure Luna's safety. The dance between man and beast was delicate, with everyone understanding the weight of their responsibility. After what seemed like hours but was mere minutes, Luna was finally restrained. A collective sigh of relief echoed as the ropes held, and the mighty tigress was temporarily subdued. This allowed Sarah to approach confidently, knowing that Luna was safe from causing harm or being harmed. Sarah swiftly began her examination. Every heartbeat, every breath, every nuance of Luna's body was under scrutiny. The surrounding air vibrated with anticipation. Mark watched intently from a distance, anxiously awaiting any clue about Luna's condition. Midway through her assessment, Sarah's face shifted from professional concentration to stark concern. She paused, double-checking what she had found, her fingers lingering over a specific area of Luna's body. Mark noticed the change, his gut twisting with unease. Without hesitation, Sarah signaled to the zoo staff. Within moments, the distant wail of an emergency animal ambulance resonated through the premises. Time was evidently of the essence, and the urgency intensified as the vehicle approached. Mark tried to approach Sarah, eager for an update, but she seemed deeply lost in her thoughts, choosing not to divulge any information yet. Mark's frustration boiled. The enigmatic expression on Sarah's face added to the layers of uncertainty clouding the situation. The process of loading Luna, still restrained, into the ambulance was painstaking. Mark, ever so protective, decided to follow in his car. He needed to be close, needing to know every detail of what transpired next. The drive to the clinic was eerily silent, yet Mark's mind was anything but. Memories of Luna's first arrival at the zoo, their growing bond, and the countless moments they shared played in a loop. The weight of worry pressed on him, every mile seeming longer than the last. The sprawling veterinary clinic stood like a beacon. Known for its state-of-the-art facilities and expert staff, it was Luna's best shot at recovery. Mark watched as Luna was carefully unloaded and transported inside. With a heavy heart, he followed, hoping against hope for positive news. As Luna was hurried into the operating room, Mark felt a sudden pang of separation. The doors closed, leaving him outside, feeling helpless. He paced the waiting area, every second amplifying his concern for the tigress he so dearly loved. The hands of the clock seemed to move agonizingly slow. Mark found himself transfixed, hoping that each passing minute would bring news of Luna's condition. Yet, as the minutes turned to hours, the deafening silence persisted. Mark gravitated towards a windowed door, peering inside. He caught fragmented glimpses of the operation, the bright surgical lights, the silhouette of Sarah working diligently, and occasionally Luna's subdued form on the table. This limited view offered little consolation. After what felt like an eternity, the door opened and out stepped Sarah. Her face, though lined with fatigue, held a faint glimmer of hope. Mark rushed to her side, eager for any information she could provide. "Sarah, please," Mark pleaded. "Is Luna okay? What did you find?" His eyes, wide with concern, sought answers from the vet. The hallway echoed with the urgency of his voice. Sarah gently ushered Mark towards a more secluded corner of the clinic. "We need a quiet place to talk," she murmured, guiding him to a small cafeteria tucked away from the bustle of the hospital. With steaming cups of coffee in front of them, Sarah began her explanation. The warm drink seemed out of place given the chill of the conversation, but it provided a small comfort. "There were irregularities," Sarah began, hesitating slightly. "I felt unusual bulges in Luna's uterus, something I've not encountered before in tigers." She continued, "There's a potential for a serious infection. It's not something I've seen commonly, but it's grave, Mark. We need to act swiftly." However, amidst the worry, Sarah's eyes twinkled with a glint of optimism. "It's a challenge, but there are treatments. We'll do everything in our power to get Luna through this," she reassured. Mark, taking a deep breath, clung onto that sliver of hope. "The situation is indeed dire," she began gently, her eyes earnestly meeting Mark's. "But we have some encouraging news. Luna's infection, while undeniably severe, is localized. This means it hasn't had the chance to spread rampantly throughout her body. Such confinement, in a strange twist, offers us a considerable advantage when it comes to designing and implementing a treatment strategy for her." Time was of the essence. Every second became a precious commodity, and the medical team, recognizing the gravity of the situation, shifted their efforts into the highest gear. Sarah, as the central pillar, coordinated every move with precision, ensuring that Luna benefited from an optimal comprehensive care plan, one that prioritized the safety of both the tigress and her unborn offspring. Mark found himself caught in a whirlwind of anxiety and hope, seemingly frozen in time. He was tethered to a state of intense anticipation, tightly gripping onto the faintest ray of hope. As he waited, every tick of the clock was a stark reminder of the high-stakes battle being waged to bring Luna back from the brink. The clock hands seemed to drag on endlessly, but eventually Sarah emerged, fatigue evident in her posture. Yet Her tired eyes carried a hint of optimism. With a faint smile, she approached Mark, breaking the silence. The initial results are promising. Luna appears to be positively responding to our aggressive treatment, her words acting as a gentle balm on Mark's frayed nerves. Isolated in the subdued ambience of the waiting room, Mark found himself on an emotional odyssey. The events of the day played out in his mind, a roller coaster of stark fear, fervent hope, and an all-encompassing affection for Luna. As the velvety cloak of night began to lift, giving way to the soft golden embrace of dawn, a significant shift was observed in Luna's condition. There was a palpable change. Her previously erratic vitals now maintained a reassuring consistency, heralding a turn for the better in her ongoing tussle with the malicious infection. The weight of relief and gratitude pressing on Mark's chest was immeasurable. Taking tentative steps towards the veterinary squad, he managed to voice his feelings, albeit with evident difficulty. Words might falter, but my gratitude knows no bounds. I owe each of you immeasurably, his sentiment echoing deeply in the room. The subsequent days bore witness to a heartening metamorphosis. Luna, initially tentative and somewhat distant with Sarah, began displaying subtle signs of trust. This shift was a silent testament to the profound bond that had been nurtured and solidified amidst the crucible of the recent challenges. The ordeal necessitated introspection. Gathering in solemn unity, the zoo's personnel engaged in a profound dialogue. They dissected the event, extracting lessons, and collaboratively charted out robust preventive strategies. Their united goal was crystal clear: ensure proactive measures to prevent a recurrence of such traumatic events. A palpable vibrancy returned to the zoo. Luna's renewed vigor was impossible to miss, much to the elation of her adoring audience. Her frolicsome demeanor and sprightly antics painted a picture of her commendable journey back to full health. A discernible transformation marked Luna's interactions, especially with Sarah. The tigress's gaze, once tinged with caution, now shimmered with warmth and gratitude. This deepening bond seamlessly integrated Sarah into the close-knit circle of trust, alongside Luna and Mark. A collective sense of exhilaration enveloped the zoo. Whether it was the dedicated staff or the regular visitors, a shared sense of eager anticipation resonated. The spotlight was firmly on Luna as everyone keenly awaited the arrival of her cub, a symbolic continuation of life's wondrous cycle. Luna's story, marked by trials, tribulations, and eventual triumph, resonated far beyond the confines of the zoo. It was a tale of unwavering resolve, expertise, and profound dedication. Luna's miraculous rebound became a celebrated beacon of hope, inspiring countless hearts. The challenges faced had only served to cement the bond between Mark and Luna. The aura at the zoo was one of profound hope and electric anticipation. Luna's imminent journey into motherhood promised a beautiful future. The chapter might have drawn to a close, but it did so with a poignant promise: a bright beacon of new life, fresh starts, and an undying flame of hope illuminating the path ahead.